Do you get frustrated that you can't fix everything out there? I mean, I can't close the border. I can't fix elections. If you see what I see, you would like to have some concrete steps of what you can do to protect you and yours. And so we're going to get into that today on the John Lovell Show. We're off like a shot. Benjamin, are you ready?
Boom!
Are you ready, Camera B? We're doing it all now. Here we go. And I wanted to single out before we really get into the meat and potatoes is what you're going to glean from this video. There's a certain demographic out there that's going to jump into the comments of every video I put out where we talk about preparation, and they're going to say, you're an alarmist. Why are you fear-mongering? Why you make people feel unsafe? It's not that bad. And I wanted you to very quickly recognize these people so that you can discount them immediately. The reason why I say that these people go through great pains to ignore very obvious signals going out there. There's writing on the wall, and these people immediately want to look down and pretend it's not there. They are very fearful people already. And when they see somebody like you who are proactive and are making plans in case something went wrong, they see that and it makes them feel even more unprepared. It makes them feel even more fearful. Now, you're not fearful of like the opposite of being fearful in uncertainty in the future is preparation in the present. I'm prepared, so I don't have to fear that anymore. I've got a good home defense plan, so I can really let down my hair and be able to just enjoy my family. And I'm not walking through my house at 2 a.m, strapped in a ghillie suit of like, no, I've got all kinds of layers of personal protection. I'm able to really kick up my feet, and I don't have to live in a state of paranoia. But these people that'll call you an alarmist, or they'll say that you're being a fearmonger, they are fearful people already. And your very existence makes them feel fearful. But it's not your fault. They were fearful before they saw you making steps to protect you and your family. It's a loving thing to do, to be prepared for come what may. It's just part of being a protector, provider, a leader, and a lover of those people that are entrusted into your circle. So good job for that. All right, guys, preparation, checklist, all that stuff. If you're a list person like I am, you're going to just dork out on this video. It'd be great. Some of the stuff you probably already got covered. Wonderful. This is a good review. I'll handle it in more of a systematic fashion. I'm going to tap into old military training where I'll use the acronym PACE. PACE stands for primary plans, alternate plans, contingency plans, and emergency plans. This is how I'm wired. And so no matter what I am really doing in life, if it's anything big or worth doing, I typically have my primary plan. This is what I'm going to do. This is the general idea. What if something changes though? Well, then my primary plan may shift into an alternate plan. And then let's say both of those things go to pot. Well, now I need a contingency plan. Big things have changed, and so the trajectory that should have happened didn't happen, and I'm going to have to fork off in a different direction. And so now what's my contingency plan? And then what if everything fails? Well, emergency plan then. And so I like to layer my thinking in terms of primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. And through that acronym, I've got different stuff that we can fill in. So we will get started. Quick note on preparation in general, though. This is a modified Pascal's wager applied from the theology world into just preparation. If you are prepared for upcoming disaster and disaster doesn't happen, well, at least you get peace of mind in the present, but nothing really changes for you. You planned for something, didn't happen, you're okay. You could still be sitting pretty. However, if you didn't plan and disaster overtook you, well, now you're in really, really bad trouble. And so the cost of planning is very, very small. Now, you could plan in a really stupid way and mortgage out your house to buy nothing but food storage preps, and then your family goes into bankruptcy. And so that would be an example of preparation fail. But you guys got the spirit of what I'm saying. There's a high cost to not being prepared if something bad happened, right? And so yay for preparation. 3 cheers. Now let's jump into the very first one. This is our primary plan. The first thing I'd point out, and this is not in any particular order, but I would say some type of political advocacy. I think that you should be politically involved, know the issues. We're far past the time, politically speaking, when we could afford to be in a state of apathy. I mean, a decade or two ago, you could just go to work and you kind of check in and out of politics, but it didn't affect your day-to-day living so much. Now, politics is in your pockets. It's in your home. It's everywhere, and it's affecting every single part of our lives, which means you can't just check out and be apathetic. You got to be really well schooled up on the issues. On this, we have a shameless plug. We have an ad that really dovetails great in, and we'll jump back in. This video is sponsored by Hillsdale College. Hillsdale is now offering you guys 40 free online courses so that you can do something other than just veg out in front of a TV watching mind-numbing content that doesn't leave you any better. You could still be learning stuff. It's education for the whole family. 40 free courses. You could learn about the works of C.S. Lewis, stories from the book of Genesis, meaning of the U.S. Constitution, rise and fall of the Roman Republic, or the history of the Christian ancient church. For one, I am taking the Great Books 101. That's the ancient to medieval course. You could take that course with me right now. In this course, you're going to look at the most revered authors in Western history. Guys like Homer, Sophocles, Virgil, Augustine, Dante, Chaucer. From the epic poems of antiquity to the romances of the Middle Ages, the classic texts will challenge you to explore their timeless lessons on human nature, the divine, virtue, self-government, and much more. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/WPS. That's hillsdale.edu/WPS to enroll. There's no cost to you, and it's easy to get started. Once again, that's hillsdale.edu/WPS to register. And we're back. I had mentioned political advocacy. The next thing I would say in your primary plan is community integration. I think people in their preparation minds, they get too gear, gun, food centric, and they really miss this piece. And it might be one of the most important pieces. So really hear me on this. Part of your primary plan in times of such dire straits should be community integration. That means you should know who your neighbors are. Make friends with people in your local school or your local co-op. Hang out with people at your church. Become integrated with other people. If things go sideways, you and your wife against the world isn't going to work very long. It'll work for a little while, and then it will not work for a long while. And so you really need very good, trusted relationships integrated in hardcore. Now, under community integration, it's not just playing nice with the people around you and building a community. I would also add under that, getting to know your city councilors, your local sheriff, police and EMS in your neighborhood. It's going to be a lot harder for your local government to come down with an iron fist on you because of all the handed down tyrannical policies that are happening and are going to be happening far more en masse if you're actually known to these people. Yeah, I would love to be on a first name basis with whatever law enforcement is going to be enforcing whatever tyranny is, because what can happen is if you are known to your local sheriff's department and EMS and all this stuff, and you've built relationships with them, then it's going to be far more difficult for them to enforce tyrannical laws against you. What can happen is you can make in your own little area, this is going to work very well in rural America. It's not going to work at all in urban America, but in rural America, you know your sheriff's department, they can thumb their nose at federal government asking them to pass down anti-constitutional laws. And you, in your own little microcosm, if they won't enforce it, then it's not going to happen in your local area. I noticed this during the COVID lockdowns. I lived in a more rural-ish area, still neighborhoods and still a downtown area, but because we're here in Georgia, the enforcement wasn't happening very much. And so only in a few little places for a very short amount of time. And what happened is I didn't lose 2 years of my life like a lot of people did in urban areas. You cops out there, will you commit to follow the Constitution even when your bosses don't? All of you are going to have to answer that question, not just in word, but mostly in deed. Tyrants can make whatever laws they want, but ultimately they are successful if you enforce their tyranny. Don't do it. All right, so we're still in our primary plan. I mentioned political advocacy and community integration. Next thing is, let's say you live in a state that's certainly not a free state, or you live in a highly urbanized area and you're like, this isn't going to go well. It's not going well now. Well, I would ask you to consider moving, and that's painful. And so you're going to have 101 reasons why that's very difficult or downright impossible. But I would ask you to be smart and in your primary plan, recognizing you're on borrowed time, on borrowed terrain there, and you're really going to have to get out of there. And so make a plan. A lot of people have been emptying out of major cities. A lot of areas of major cities are vacant. The big cities are failing.
Hey, John, let me query that, though. Let's say that you actually have a pretty good community. Would you choose the really decent community that you found in a less than ideal state, or would you move the state even though you had community?
Man, I'm going to rank a local community extremely high. So if you've got a really good, healthy, vibrant community built up, and you're not, if you got a really good community, but you're in a city, in a state that's not free, you got to get out of Dodge. But let's say you're far more rural in a non-free state, but that community is super strong.
Would you give pause on that?
I'd give pause on that. I'm going to take it on a case-by-case basis there because we need pockets of resistance everywhere, right?
Yeah.
The last piece I would say for my primary plan, and some of you guys will immediately check out, give me my 30 seconds on this though, because I really think this is probably the best one, and that's prayer. We should be praying for our country. I think that's one of the best things that you can do. If you are a man of faith, then prove it that a God sovereign over all can fix anything. My big question is whether praying God's blessing when really, his intention isn't to bless us, it's to judge us, and we're getting the leaders that our populace actually deserves. Bad leaders are a sign of judgment for a bad people. And so I don't know. I'm certainly going to be praying blessing for my country in spite of what we actually deserve. And so throwing myself on the mercies of God, I'm going to pray for my country still. That's part of my primary plan.
I mean, I believe that God is a lover of how a nation orders itself.
Yeah.
I believe that God is a God of order, and that praying for right standing political solutions for a people group is a honorable and a holy thing.
And I think so too. But what happens when our leaders and the machinations of our supposed ordered government is now hopelessly corrupt? Everything's twisted. Justice is turned back in the public squares, and now he resigns us to the chaos that we're imposing on ourselves.
Oh, that's so tough to argue against. But I would say that with Christ, there is always hope in that situation, even for the most
right.
depraved.
But the hope isn't that it'll fix all of our government. You know, the hope is the kingdom that's not of this world. And so the hope is in the incoming spiritual kingdom of God that he's bringing forth right amidst our chaos. And so the promise is that the church will win in the end, in heaven enjoying Jesus forever.
And I would also then add on that evil men be changed, dead in their tracks, like most of us once were.
Yeah. If you're an atheist or agnostic and you made it through that, congratulations. I know that was probably tough.
John.
You had to take a knee, drink some water, face out, and be like, these stupid people. How do you not know? It's all make-believe.
It's so much fun.
No, I'm aware of where you're coming from because I once came from that place. All right, jumping down to alternate plans. So primary plan is in effect. Alternate, I'm also thinking about of like, okay, what happens if everything in the country is worse, but it's not like emergency worse? In this place, what I want to make sure in the present, because if things don't go according to my primary plan and my alternate plan here, it would be nice if I'm already working to downsize my life. What that means is I want to reduce my bills. I also want to sell sitting assets. So you got 2 jet skis you're really excited about, and they're just kind of rotting in a garage, and you barely ever ride it. Now is a good time to get rid of that. Or a boat. I don't have any of those things. And if I did, I'd immediately be like, I think I should get rid of that stuff. I think thinning out some assets, reducing some clutter, and being able to reduce overhead, whatever you can do to be able to do that. Instead of having your house always at 68 degrees, you should consider 72, and you'll get used to it. But I would try to tighten my belt a little bit more so that I am able to run a little bit leaner. A third thing, an alternate plan, this happens to just be packed full of being able to not have to become a financial slave if things don't go your way. And that's part of the way tyrants rule. That's one of the main ways that they're able to enforce their tyranny is to impoverish the people. If you're fighting just to survive financially and they're able to keep squeezing you like that, well, you will not have the ability to really resist them. And so part of the plan of tyrants always is to bankrupt a nation. They're going to be wealthy. They're going to be great. They're going to control all the assets, and causing everyone to default on all their stuff allows them to seize all their stuff, control all the stuff, and then redistribute it. It's tyranny 101. This is how Marxism works. This is how communism actually works. And so whatever you can do to make sure in your alternate plan to be able to keep yourself from being made a financial slave, that would be a good idea. Now, in the C of our PACE plan, contingency, emergency preparations, this is where we're going to dork out. I'd like you to have your tools, lots of nails, screws, spare lumber. You have all the gear that you'd want, and this can be like tactical gear. This can be survival gear, whatever. Water filtration. I would like you to have water catchment and water storage, fuel, food, emergency storage food. You can get it we've got the My Patriot Supply. I've got an affiliate that helps me out and it gets you a huge discount as well. Check down below this video for an affiliate link. It's their biggest discount that you can possibly get with My Patriot Supply. I've got like at least a year or two for my family of this stuff. It tastes good. It's, I think, the best thing out there in terms of health, taste, and calories per dollar. When I've done my audit in the past, it is my favorite out of all of it when you factor all that in. So anyway, check that out. I think it's a really, really good thing to have. So in our emergency preparation stuff, I think you should get all that stuff. I'm saving the firearms, ammunition, and stuff for the E category, emergency. Not that it's of forthright importance. It is a fail-safe, as I'll talk to in a moment, but it's not yet time to shoot anyone until we get into the emergency category. Somebody tries to kill you, you get to kill them back. I classify that not as like a contingency. That's an emergency plan. We're in an emergency if we're using guns, and so it's part of the plan. It's a big part, and as I said before, we're working on PACE all at the same time. We're always visiting PACNE, so we're not going through in order. We're kind of sweeping through in layers all the time through all these categories. Now, to continue contingency plan, I think you should cultivate the old and forgotten skills of homesteading. For some of you guys, you live in an area where you're not even allowed to have chickens, for example. Well, you're not going to be able to do a lot there. You've got an HOA that's measuring how long your front yard is. No way they're going to let you have a crowing rooster every morning. So some of you just don't have that place. But if you would cultivate certain skills that made yourself a very desirable person for a homesteader to be able to bring into their fold, well, then that could be a really, really good thing. I know as somebody who has a homestead, the only way I'd be able to keep my homestead in an emergency situation is if I have a whole network of people that are helping me work that area and secure it. And I just don't have room for everyone. I'll be looking for people that bring assets and equipment to the table or have demonstrable skills that have to do with security or even more important, growing food, fixing things, carpenters, welders, doctors, all that stuff of like, man, I need these skills. And so I'd want my arc to be filled with all the things you need and the people that know how to do everything. Last thing we're going to look at is our emergency plan. As a gun guy and as a pro trainer, I'm always thinking about this one. This is where we're talking about firearms, ammunition, and training. I've said this a million times, and I didn't coin this, but it's the Indian, not the arrow, and I absolutely believe that's true. It's not good enough to just get ammunition and firearms. You really know how to run that stuff. I would rather have some antiquated firearm in a caliber that isn't ideal with kind of crappy equipment on it. If you had a shooter that was really understood security, they knew how to reconnoiter, take and keep land, that person is going to be worth a lot. Now, what I don't want to do as I'm weighing out all of PACE, my PACE plan, is to do everything in the ammunition and firearms category, but not all the other stuff. And so I like people to properly budget. I don't want you in preparing for a possible emergency in 2 years to create a sincere current emergency for you and your family because you suck at budgeting and you really like ammo. I like ammo too, but you got to be a good protector and provider, leader and lover right now in your family, in this present moment. Don't bankrupt yourself now worrying about a possible emergency later. Make sense? The goal of my life isn't to live as long as I can in comfort and safety with as much stuff as possible. The goal of my life is to stand for what I believe in the most. And so I want to mitigate unnecessary risk while at the same time not compromising my most hardcore calling and values. So this is the conundrum. How do we balance good risk assessment and planning with your convictions in living an impactful life that matters? Right? And I think that's the task of a warrior poet. The last thing I'll say on emergency planning, and I think this is the most difficult to attain, but I think this should be the absolute goal. The best thing you could do for emergency planning, the ideal that you could get to, is to be an off-grid, self-sufficient, paid-off homestead. And you got a whole community around you, have people that are able to go in on that. That's the long goal. Now, some of you would roll your eyes and be like, oh, yeah, right. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe that's not attainable. Or it's not commonly attainable. It can be attainable because people have done it. But that's the direction to work toward, at least. And so I like having the ideal way out in the distance so that you and I can begin working toward the ideal. And it may take a long time, but this keeps us from frivolously being distracted by a bunch of smaller goals when we're actually driving toward the bigger goal. And so if we have a big and ideal goal, now we can craft all of our micro decisions in favor of the maximum. So if the micro buy decision, skill build, or whatever you're working at doesn't work toward the whole, you jettison and you figure out something that can build in that direction. Guys, thanks so much for listening. We got a lot more in this show that you are missing. Our Q and Ambush section, which is questions from you guys, stuff that you'll want to hear. And also our hot topic section, you're not going to want to miss it. To get the rest of the show, you're going to have to support us. We really appreciate it if you would put skin in the game and help us with this movement. You guys get to choose the winners out there. Woke entertainment companies or guys like us, little guys, we need your support. So if you would go over to watchwpsn.com, that's watchwpsn.com, sign up. You'll get the rest of this show, the John Lovell Show, all of our other shows, and a whole bunch of training classes from me and from other trainers in the industry that we deem amazing and spectacular. It's a fantastic value. Sign up for a year. We'd appreciate it, and we will see you next time, guys.